Feldmeyer. I'm the district supervisor of guidance. So I get to see a lot of people throughout the year because I am K through 12. So it's exciting when kids get to high school because now it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the end almost. So I really appreciate you guys coming. Obviously, your child going into college, it can be super overwhelming and a lot of information. So we really appreciate it because you guys being part of this process is a huge deal. And it helps your child, it helps us. So we really appreciate you coming to something like this. So there's a couple things that I did want to talk about. I don't know if you guys saw it on the newsletter or not. I don't know if you guys follow our newsletter. So a lot of our information will constantly be on our newsletter. We don't put a lot of exciting things and stuff on there that kids are doing because I know a lot of families have told us that they like it, that they can go on there. They know what they need to get to. They know when SATs are. They know when PSATs are. They know when testing is. They know when their expectations are. So we kind of try to keep it that way just because we want you to be able to know what's important at that time. So make sure that that's something that you're checking on a regular basis. It won't be something you have to scroll through a lot of stuff, but we will put really important information on there. Another thing, so we were going to do breakouts where we were going to do 3 rotations where we would move around. But we kind of changed that up a little bit just because there's not as many people. So after this, we're going to get up and we're going to go to the library. The counselors are going to give an overview for you of kind of like what our expectations are for students. Because a lot of times if you go to colleges, the college's entrance, if you talk to the admissions people, they have one expectation. We have a different expectation because we break it down for students. So, you know, they have their deadlines and their things like that. We break it down more than that so that they can kind of have more time to do that. So we're going to go over some of those things. We're going to have you log into Naviance. Naviance is where your child's going to go in and to fill out a brag sheet, a bunch of things like that. But we're going to make sure that your login is working. You might have got sent an email in the last couple days to reset your password. We have laptops for you, so we want to make sure that you can get in there and know what that looks like. Because we also, the scholarship bulletins that goes through the newsletter, we send them out through Naviance. We want to make sure that you have access to those things. Otherwise, we're going to talk about all these things up here, Common App, Mercer County College. If you have questions at any point, just raise your hand. There's not a whole lot of us in here. We can handle it. We are taping tonight, so if this part of it is confusing or you want to go back and look at it again, any events that we have as a counseling department, we make sure that we post it on our website. So you can always go in there and on the left-hand side of the high school counseling page, all the videos are on there. There's videos for Mercer County on Mercer County College, Mercer County Vocational School. We have mental health presentations. We had George Scott. He is a therapist in the county. He did a presentation earlier in the year. Please try to attend those things. It's great if we can get people to come out. I know sometimes the mental health presentations can be a little more difficult to, kind of get yourself to go. But we'd love to have the parents involved, and we really appreciate that. Otherwise, so we're not going to do breakout groups. We'll let you know when to go to the next thing. So if you don't know already, these are our school counselors at the high school. We have Mrs. Lindemood, Mrs. Rutt, Mrs. Gonzalez, Mr. D'Angelo, and Mrs. Welsh. So if you don't know who your kids' counselor is yet, that's our alphabet, or the alphabet up there, and that's their email. If you need anything, it's also on the district website. If you need anything, you can always ask me to. My office is in the high school guidance office. I am K through 12, but you could always, I'm pretty much always here, and if you need anything, you can always reach me also. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Rutt. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of the college planning timeline. Okay, this is one of those situations where you and your child can put as much, you could really spend the next several months doing all this stuff. But the 2 main things I hope that you will walk away with tonight is the first one. Please make sure that your child or you are registering them for the SAT or the ACT. And we're going to go into a little more detail. Mr. D'Angelo is on the next slide about that. Just to be very clear, Lawrence High School cannot, and we have nothing to do with registering your child for the SAT or the ACT. That is the family's responsibility. The other thing I want you to remember and take away is to please encourage your child to attend college boot camp. It is every year the first week in August. This year it is August 3rd. It is such a valuable day, and Mrs. Welsh is going to go into some more detail a little bit later on about what we do that day. In our experience, kids that attend that college boot camp are much better prepared for the application process and much more likely to meet those early action deadlines for college applications. Okay, so those are the two main points. The others I'll hit really quick. Always the best thing your child can be doing to prepare for college is to do well in school. We tell them this. We know that you likely know this, but it's always important to reiterate it. And then, over the summer, it could be helpful if they start thinking about their essay. We do a little bit of that in the boot camp, and then the English teachers at the beginning of the year also help students with that. For everything else, I'll let you just kind of peruse what we have listed up here. Also, please note there are flyers as you entered this room with a ton more information, more detailed timelines, information about what parents can do to support their children, etc. Thanks again for being here. I'm going to hand it over, I believe, to Mr. D'Angelo now.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. So just to reiterate Ms. Rutt's point about registering for these two tests, these are accounts that you will set up on either ACT student or College Board. And you set up an account and you'll see the timeline of the exams for the academic year and the location, and you sign up for the test that best meets your needs. So a couple points about testing. You may or may not know that since the pandemic, during the pandemic, all schools went test optional, which means that if you wanted to take one of the exams and submit your test scores when you applied to college, you could, but it's not required anymore. Since the pandemic, still 80% of colleges across the country remain test optional. So that's the good news. So those of us who are not great test takers, that's the good news because that's not required. And those of us who are good test takers, there's good news for you also because many colleges tie scholarship money and award money to high test scores. So if you're a good test taker, you can still use that to your advantage, and they will still factor it into the admissions process. But again, these 80% of the schools across the country are offering optional. So basically, we think it's a good idea still to take an exam because you have that score available to you. And if you surprise yourself and you get a really good score, then it may help your chances of being admitted to a certain school of your liking. And if it's not, where you want it to be, then you don't have to submit your score. A couple points on the differences between SAT and ACT. So ACT, first of all, has a science section. SAT does not. There are some differences in scoring between the two exams. Absolutely no difference in preferences across colleges as to which exam they would like students to take. They will accept either or both scores if you have them. The other difference that I think is kind of major is that the SAT is considered a reasoning test. So the questions, the items are a little bit more vague, and it tests your reasoning skills in addition to your knowledge base. The ACT tends to be more straightforward, much more closer to the test that you get in high school. So those are the major differences between the exams. One other point, if you decide or your student decides to register for an exam, make sure you do so well in advance. The deadlines are usually, they come up quickly, and the test may be offered weeks after the deadline. So it'll surprise you. So make sure you go in sooner rather than later to register for an exam if that's your plan. Test prep. So as a parent myself who likes to save money and needs to save money in every opportunity I can get, I advise starting with the free test prep. And both of these exams, when you register, set up an account on either ACT Student or College Board, they offer free test prep. So I would start there and use it to your advantage, use it often, and to make it more realistic, we would advise that you time yourself. So to make it look closer to the actual testing, where each section is timed. So time yourself per 10 or 20 questions and try to get them done during that time period. When you talk about test prep, the preparation really, more than the content of the test itself, is to get the timing down. And if your students have taken the PSAT, the PSAT is the best practice that there is, because it gives you a mirror image of the SAT and the timed sections, and that's where they can kind of make their mistakes. So that when they go into the SAT, the actual test, they kind of have an idea. They're more familiar with the timing of each section. Fairtest.org keeps an updated list of colleges across the country that are test optional now. So if you need a resource and you're looking when you're going to build your list of schools to apply to or consider, and you want to identify some schools that are test optional, that's the resource to use. So, as Ms. Rutt mentioned, we're each going to talk a little bit more in detail about some of these slides. You will be joining Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Rutt, and myself in the library after this, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail about Naviance and what we use with your students. So we're going to be showing you exactly what we do at Naviance and the steps that we take your students through. Naviance is our college search program, and it's also the program that we use to send electronic documents to the colleges that you're applying to. So most colleges now accept electronic documents. All of those documents get loaded into Naviance, and we're going to show you in the library what exactly gets loaded and how. Career interest inventory is a bunch of different tools that kids can use to identify their strengths and weaknesses and interests, and it helps them identify careers and college majors that align with their interests and skills. So what I like to say to all of our students when we're working with them in Naviance is play with it. Spend time in the program. You cannot make a mistake. You can't mess anything up. You can't send anything that you do in Naviance as a student to colleges. We do that. So don't be afraid to make a mistake. Play with it. Once they get familiar with it, we hear them saying that it's actually fun, right? Because there's a lot of information and a lot of tools available in Naviance that they can use. College search tool, we're going to show you again a search. There's a couple different searches that you can use to help you build a list, an initial list, to help you start considering schools to take a deeper dive into, right? So you're going to have a bunch of different criteria that is available for you to select. And once you select the criteria that's important to you as a student in the colleges that you're looking for, it produces a list for you that includes those criteria. So it's one of the most valuable tools available in Naviance. College Compare and Scattergram, once you build that list, those two tools tell you what kind of an academic fit you are personally for the schools that you're considering. So you may build a list with your criteria that's important to you. And then when you go into the compare and scattergram tools, you're going to find which of those schools match your, not ability, but your performance as a student in terms of GPA and whether or not you have SAT or ACT scores loaded into Naviance. Brag sheet is something that we ask all rising seniors and seniors to do for us and the teachers that they're going to be asking recommendations from. And a brag sheet is exactly what it's called. It's the student bragging about themselves. So there's maybe 10 or 12 different questions all about their high school experience and their text boxes, so they're able to kind of type in those responses to those questions about their experiences in high school. And what it does is it adds substance to our recommendations, because the reality is we could probably write recommendations for all of our seniors because we've spent 4 years with them. So we know more about their character and maybe less in some cases about what they've done throughout high school. So this gives us details that we can include in the recommendation letter. And then requesting letters of recommendation. I think we all probably have our own timeline about, when is best to ask recommendations. I like to say late junior year, late spring, or early fall. Identify 2 teachers that they want recommendations from. The subject area and the year that they had the teachers is less important than the rapport that they built with them. Ideally, they can find 2 teachers in the content area that they're intending to study when they get to college from 11th grade. But it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it's an engineering student who made the strongest connection with an art teacher freshman year, right? So 2 teachers, they upload their recommendations into Naviance along with all of the other materials that the colleges ask for. So when the students are ready to start applying to their schools, we have all their documents uploaded in Naviance and we send them electronically. So that's a little bit, again, we'll go into a little bit more detail in the next session. Ms. Gonzalez.
Hi, everybody. So what is demonstrated interest? Schools, not all schools, but most schools do measure or try to measure how much a student is interested in them. And that is a measurement that they use and could impact whether or not the student is admitted to the school. And there's different ways that schools will try to measure demonstrated interest. I've listed them all here. I'll talk about them briefly. The biggest thing is applying early. When a student makes the attempt to hit one of those early action deadlines, it really tells a school that they're interested in them, that they've made it a priority to meet that early deadline, because it's important it helps their process, the school's process, when students apply early. So it's just, showing them that they're responsible and that they really care to hit those early deadlines. There's another deadline called early decision, which I think Miss Linda is going to talk about. And that is the number one way to demonstrate interest, because you're making a commitment to the school when you hit that deadline. But I'll let her talk more about that. Visiting campus. And I know this is not possible. That depends on your means, and it depends on time, depends on distance. But if you're able to get your child to a campus, especially if they're very, very interested in a particular school, that is another very good way for a school to measure a student's interest. So visiting the school is number one. If you can't go to them, make sure that your child visits with the school when they come to New Jersey, okay? Because a lot of schools do have sessions that they have locally, okay? So they travel, their reps travel, they do recruiting, they'll have information sessions at local hotels. They'll have their banquet halls where and you can see on the college's undergraduate admissions website if they have any events like that locally. So information sessions, college fairs, and sometimes colleges will visit us here in Lawrence High School. So September, October, and November, we have college admissions officers coming to our school and meeting with our juniors and seniors. And Mr. D'Angelo was just talking about Naviance. Students can go on Naviance and see what schools are coming. We generally have like 2 or 3 coming a day, I would say, all through those fall months. And they can register to attend that event. It happens in the Career Center and Guidance. They'll get a pass that morning, and they'll come and meet with the admissions person here at our school. Okay, so make sure that they're checking Naviance and they're seeing if the schools that they're interested are visiting. So that would be another way for them to demonstrate interest. When you do visit or when your child visits with an admissions rep, be it at an information session or here or on their campus, follow that up with an email to the actual admissions person who they met with. All of that information is generally readily available on the college's website, so they can just shoot them an email. Thank you so much. It was great to meet you. You could just leave it at that, or ask a couple of questions that maybe have come up since they had that visit. A lot of schools do a lot of marketing in terms of webinars, and they have student panels. They'll have different events online. So registering for those events are another way for students to demonstrate interest, and also registering on their website to receive communications from the school. They're very sophisticated in how they track all of these things. And a lot of colleges' website, I've heard the term, they're sticky, meaning they can see your child's footprint on their website. They can see how long they've been on certain pages, how many clicks on the links. It is pretty sophisticated stuff that they have going on. When your child does sign up for these communications and the schools are emailing them, I'm sure they've already started emailing them because a lot of kids have already started this process and schools are reaching out to them, open the emails. They can tell when they send them an email and they've not opened them. And then using the college essays. So as far as the college essays go, there's one college essay that will go to all of the schools that your child applies to. That's like the main college essay. But a lot of colleges have additional essays, which are supplemental essays. And often those supplemental essays are meant to assess how interested and how much a child really knows the school. So your child should use those essays to really reflect their knowledge about the school and to show the school that they've done their homework, that they really know what the school's about, and that they're applying to that school for specific reasons. And then another quick kind of summary on financial aid, because this is a very in-depth topic, so we don't have time to go into it too deeply tonight. There is a financial aid night that we put on in the fall, November, usually October of next year for the seniors. Okay, so there's a night that happens. It's been virtual the last couple years. I don't know if it's going to be in person or virtual next year, but it's a really great night. The presenter that we usually get is fabulous, and you'll get a whole rundown during that presentation. But for now, financial aid is any federal, state, or private institutional funds that are given to your family to help you pay for college. Okay, and that can be broken down in lots of different ways. So when you look at a school's tuition, okay, Bill, that's the sticker price of the school. Not many families pay that full sticker price. Usually there's some sort of aid that goes into a school's, when they accept a student, you get an award letter, and there's usually some sort of aid that comes along with that, okay? If it's financial need that your family has, you may receive money from the state, you may receive money from the federal government, and then you might receive additional money from the school, from the institution, to help, bridge that need. But your child can also receive aid in terms of maybe grades or athletics or some sort of gift that they have that they're bringing to the school to share with that campus. So that would come from the institution. Okay, so the institution would provide that additional aid to you. So in terms of that sticker price, right? So you have the sticker price of the school, but then you have the actual price that your family will pay depending on how much aid comes in that award letter. And it's hard to calculate what that might be. Schools try to help you estimate what that net price will be for you, and they have a calculator on their website. This is mandated by by the federal government. So all universities have to have this net price calculator on their website, where you can go in. It's going to ask you a bunch of questions about your finances. And it's going to also ask a bunch of questions about the child's merit, about their grades and things like that, just to give you an estimate as to what you should expect in terms of award money. And that will help you to kind of figure out if that school is going to be a right fit for your family in terms of the financials. Okay. What else? Important forms. Everyone should fill out the FAFSA. That is the federal application for financial aid. They will go into that in depth during the financial aid night and break that down for all of you. So that is mandated by all the schools in this country. Okay. Some schools also have the CSS profile as a form that families have to fill out. That's more private schools require that. Okay. Your TC&Js, your Rutgers, your public schools generally only require the FAFSA. In New Jersey, okay, we have another organization called HESA, and there's an additional application that is connected to the FAFSA. And once you complete the FAFSA, it tells you, okay, now it's time to do this form. It's just a few extra questions that you have to fill out. And then if your child doesn't have a social security number, New Jersey can also provide aid for that child, and that's the application. That's the New Jersey alternative application that you have to fill out. The past 5 years or so, the FAFSA has become available to families on October 1st so that they can complete it and hopefully have the schools have that information so that when you apply for those early deadlines, you can get an award letter sooner rather than later. We were just told a couple of days ago at an in-service that we went to that they're overhauling the whole system. So it is very likely that it's not going to be ready by October 1st. They're estimating maybe even January, which is really going to cause some issues. Okay, they're expecting, they're hopeful that it will be done earlier rather than later, but they're expecting it to not happen anywhere near where it's been happening. So if you have older children, or if you yourself have to fill out the FAFSA for yourself, just be aware that things are not going to be as they've been the last 5 years. And then I just mentioned the financial aid night. So these are just some awesome online tools for you guys as far as just explaining the financial aid process. The bottom two, if you're interested, okay, they have very large databases of private scholarships. So as juniors, not many applications are available to your kids to apply to scholarships yet. You usually have to be in your senior year. Sometimes maybe the summer before senior year, kids can start applying to private scholarships. But these scholarships generally stay the same, and their criteria stay the same, and their deadlines are very similar. So if you want to start the process now of looking for scholarships that your child might be eligible for, these two are really great websites for you to start plugging in their information and start researching, what's out there, and then start creating a list for yourselves. So with the deadlines for this year, because they're not likely going to change too much, and you can just apply them to next year. Because that can be a pretty cumbersome process, is applying to all of these private scholarships, but it is worth it. And just a little comment on the bottom, I just want to make sure that you guys note, if a site or if an actual scholarship is asking you for money, if you have to pay something to apply, don't. Okay, that's generally it's not going to be helpful. Okay, and any website that is asking you to pay to, be part of some organization because you'll get this scholarship if that's generally not advisable. All right.
Hello, everyone. So the Common App is actually how students apply to colleges. So we use Naviance to send all of the documents like transcripts, counselor reports, recommendation letters to the schools, but the actual application happens on Common App. More than 1,000 colleges are on Common App. So the majority of the schools that your student applies to will be within this database. What's nice about it is that you only fill out the application one time. It is one single application from start to finish, and then students add their school and will answer any supplemental questions or supplemental essays that that school has, right? What major? Are they planning on living on campus? What term are they applying? All of that stuff. So it really simplifies the application process. A big update this year, Rutgers is going to be on the Common App. So forever, it has not been. So students always had to apply separately. It was a kind of a pain in the butt, right? A big process. Now it's all on the same thing. So the majority of our students will actually only be applying to schools using Common App. Some schools still don't have Common App. A lot of highly selective schools will sometimes not be on Common App, but more and more of them are. So the app opens up, I want to say May, it will be updated for the current juniors timeline. If they were to create an account right now, everything would be related to August 1st? August 1st, okay. Sorry. So they update the timelines at that point. Coming to college boot camp is, again, a huge plus because what we do is we sit down with everyone, we have them create a Common App account, and we go step by step through every single part of the application, make sure they understand it, and answer any questions. So theoretically, a student could come to that college boot camp and completely finish a lot of their Common App, which is a huge weight, right? They're not having to worry about that later. What else? I think that's all on Common App. Am I missing anything? No. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious. This school has a big performance off as well. What about portfolios? Do you as a body help build these for students? I understand they have responsibilities for them, but I would feel something that really started after this year. Especially if they're trying to go for some of the challenging schools, like university of arts or religious person school, things like that. Is that something that you've done or?
So students who are applying to art programs that require portfolios are really encouraged to take AP Studio Art in senior year because the focus of that course is creating that portfolio. So they come into school in September with part of that portfolio already done because the course has them do a bunch of stuff over the summer. So they're coming into September with a certain amount of it. And they use, the criteria that a lot of the schools have in terms of the type of art. So if you're talking about art, that's what we usually do.
But I say art, I mean like.
No, I know. I'm getting it.
Okay.
As far as the other arts in terms of like performance and things like that, that's really on the families to sort out. A lot of those timelines are very early. So if you have a child who's interested in doing like performing arts at a school, you usually have to take those early deadlines in November because you have auditions and things like that that you also have to schedule and travel for. So just be aware if that's your situation. So in terms of like art deadlines, it just doesn't work. A lot of that stuff has to happen during the summer. And you have to be ready to go in September, already contacting those schools and getting that stuff out.
Okay, thank you. Just out of curiosity, why, and you're doing it for one form of art, which is the expressive art, but why not make it more inclusive for the other art forms as well, with portfolio art? You know what I'm saying?
The AP Student Art is a standardized course, right? So like this is AP Biology, AP Chemistry. So this is a curriculum that's set forth by College Board. So it's not necessarily us as a school, it's us providing a course that already exists. I don't know of one that exists like that for performing arts, but
It's in the portfolio, when we have to submit the work, there's different forms of art that it comes for, look for. So your student will have a choice. And again, there are different genres, we call them teams, and so, yes, there are different courses, and that's, the course itself is called 2D art, and that is the portfolio set.
So I don't know of a course that exists like that for
Well, yeah, again, I wasn't sure what the cause is, it's my final feedback. I just thought, in general, it helps with your application rate. You're going to be an actress. Right? Having a listing of all the different shows you've done at school, having pictures, having something that you rate or share with them. As you apply to these schools. Because this is modality schools. I would thought it was something that you start looking at in junior year. So I'm wrapping it up. The senior, we want a lot of time to take part of it if you really do all these applications. So I was curious to see what the process was like. And that's fine. If you're on barracks, just some feedback, it would be nice if there was more assistance from the doctors.
Yeah, I mean, reach out to your school counselor, to your class counselor per se.
And I also think that sometimes it's hard to identify, like, is this student in, like, theater or something like that? Or are they really serious about it, or they want to try to go to a higher level school for theater or art or something like that? If they are serious about it, that's something they can work with the teacher, and usually the teachers do also notice that, so then they could select all the things that they've been doing throughout the period of time. In those classes, during this, like you said, it's not a formal thing, but it's also good to know if the student is very serious about it and wants to continue to do it. That's definitely a conversation to have with the counselor, because then we can help them try to, have communication with that teacher and make sure that we are collecting things to kind of make sure that it's pursue that goal.
We also have career academies, by the way, for juniors and seniors. So there's arts and humanities, there's business and international studies, and there's STEM. So if you have a student, for example, that's interested in the arts, encourage them to let the counselor know they want to be in that academy. They will be put on that academy's list, and they will attend meetings with that academy's advisor or leader once a month, I believe. And part of those meetings involve having speakers and professionals in those areas come to their meetings to not only network, but to disseminate information about that, whatever area that they're interested in.
And the last thing she mentioned briefly, our art teachers have helped lots of students assemble portfolios. So our performing arts teachers have helped lots of kids do that. They can also always ask those teachers, if they have a good relationship with them, what should I be doing, right? So that's always an option. Okay, so really quickly, we talked about those early deadlines, right? And those are a really great way to demonstrate interest in schools. There are a couple different early deadlines. There's early action restrictive, and early decision, as well as priority deadlines. So the big differentiation between early action and early decision is that early decision is binding, meaning that you are saying that if you are accepted, you will attend this school. You will withdraw applications from every other school you have applied to, and you will attend this school if they accept you. So you really only want to apply early decision somewhere if you are absolutely committed to that being your top choice. Early action, same deadline, usually November 1st, but it's non-restrictive, meaning that you can apply to as many schools as you want early action. It's, again, a great way to demonstrate interest. You get your applications in, again, usually by November 1st, and the benefit is that you're getting information back sooner. So you have a little bit more time to review your applications, where you were accepted, and make your decision. Maybe go on another visit, go to an accepted student's day, that kind of stuff. There is something called early action restrictive. This is more rare. It is a non-binding early action, but it usually limits the number of schools that you can apply to. So usually you can only apply to one school early action restrictive, as opposed to being able to apply to 3, 4, 5 schools early action. And it also usually limits your number of applications you can submit to private colleges. So you might say, I'm applying to Princeton Early Action Restrictive, but then your other applications should be public state schools. So again, it's not as common, but some of the more prestigious schools will have early action restrictive. Priority deadlines are, again, similar to early action. Some schools have a priority application deadline. It's kind of your way of demonstrating interest, getting your information to them earlier. Regular decision is just regular decision. But rolling admission is just something to be aware of. Instead of a regular decision or an early action or an early decision where you apply by one deadline and all decisions are released on another specific day, rolling admission is a rolling process. So as colleges receive apps, they review those apps. So Ryder is a great example, right down the road, that does rolling admission. Mercer County Community College is rolling admission. As you send in your applications, they review it, and then they send it back out to you. So you're not waiting for March 1st or April 1st or whenever their kind of cutoff is. Any questions on any of those? Okay.
Hi, everybody, again. So speak of the devil, Mercer County Community College. A little bit different than the other traditional schools. No SAT, ACT scores are required. There's no admission fee. It is a rolling basis. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you hear. Letters of recommendation are not required. The nice things about Mercer, students who might not be able to apply or afford a four-year college, who aren't ready yet to leave, they can get their whole associate's degree at Mercer. And if they stay in state, a four-year college in state it's guaranteed they'll accept the whole associate's degree, all those credits. It gets a little tricky if we go out of state, because then you'd want to check and see which credits are acceptable. Now, the other thing with Mercer has 4 university offices on campus now. So your student could technically do 2 years for the associate's degree, stay on and do a bachelor's and a master's degree if needed on the campus. These schools are Fairleigh Dickinson, which offers a bachelor's and master's in certain programs. Wilmington University, again, master's and bachelor's. William Patterson, up in northern Jersey, offers both degrees again, too. And Rutgers even has an office there. They offer just the bachelor's degree. Now, again, these colleges don't offer all programs that they offer at their main sites. But the thing is, too, if your student wants to stay at home, maybe doesn't want to commute, can't afford it, the tuition for these other 4 colleges is a lot cheaper than if you went to Ryder or William Patterson. Okay, let me see, it's guaranteed transfer, I said that, so they're the definite pluses. I know kids are sometimes funny, I don't want to go to Mercer. Mercer's one of the best community colleges in the state. They've got terrific faculty, they've got lots of options, and just lots of available programs and services for kids. Okay, the big boot camp that you keep hearing about, August 3rd. Your students can sign up, okay? If you haven't made your vacation plans yet, work around the state, okay? That's how important we think it is, okay? So some of the things we do on that day, we bring the kids in, we get them all signed up, we go through the Common App, as was mentioned. We also have a college admissions panel there, and we call it a meet and greet. So after we get done talking about what we need to talk about, we encourage the kids to go up to these reps and talk to them, ask the specific questions. You know, what do I have to do? Do I have to take the SAT? When's the deadline? I mean, these reps are more than happy to talk to the kids and help them with what their questions are. We do the Common App. We do Naviance. We talk about letters of recommendation. Brag sheets are really important, you know. Don't start too early, though, because I find that sometimes students do things in the summer. They work or they're traveling or whatever, and they forget to update the brag sheets. And that's stuff we need to know, because it's kind of like buying a new car. You know, you're going to go out and you're going to test drive it, right? You're not going to buy it unseen. Same thing with colleges. You're getting one chance to apply to these schools, all right? And you want it to be the best that it can be, all right? And the transcripts, we go over the mechanics of how to send the transcript, the paperwork that's involved and all that. And we overview deadlines, timelines. Past few years, we've tried to have someone come in to do the essay writing to get the kids started, because that seems to be one of the hardest parts. But the senior English teachers are also working on that. They're also available to help the kids. I know the kids talk about staying after school to meet with one of them, or, during their resource period. So we have lots of help available because we want them to be successful. And I know someone said that in the previous slides. We can pick out, and this is going to sound terrible, we can pick out who's been to boot camp and who hasn't, because they understand what to do. They understand how to link Naviance with the Common App, how to get all that process and procedure in place. So sign them up tonight, okay? Questions?
All right, I promise this is almost the end. So this is just a quick slide to point out the flyers that we have just outside the store here for you. Lots of great resources that have just about as much information as you could possibly want. Lastly, just a reminder, here are the school counselors and the students that we support. And if you'd like to register for College Boot Camp, there's a QR code you can scan there for your child, or you can key in that website. We will email you a copy of this presentation, so if you don't get to it tonight, that's okay too. You'll have another opportunity. I think at this point we are ready to move. Ms. Philmeyer, are we moving into the library, everybody? Okay.
So we have some students that went through this process this year, so that you kind of hear what was maybe stressful, what was easy, what they think they needed help with. Because there's usually this stuff that, you might want to kind of nudge your kid and be like, hey, did you do that brag sheet? Kind of thing. So we thought that might help a little bit. So at this point, we're going to all stand up and you can follow some of the counselors to the library, because I know if I were you, I'd probably get lost.